What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's film room is going to be on new Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback Donte Jackson, newly acquired from the Carolina Panthers in the Donte Jackson trade. Today it came out that he reworked his contract for a one-year, $6 million cap hit. I watched about a half dozen games. I got clips from all of those. Going to show you guys, what he does well, where some of his limitations are, and everything in between. I've got off coverage reps, press reps, red zone reps, run defense, everything that you could possibly want. I feel like is going to be covered in this video. So I'm excited to go over this one. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me my thoughts on Donte, so I've spent a lot of time, going through his film, but good stuff here. Just before we get started, please make sure to like the video, subscribe, drop me a comment. All that stuff helps me out a lot and allows me to bring you guys even more content just like this. So without further ado, let's jump into the film. So Donte Jackson, 5'10", 180-ish pounds. Lighter cornerback, played mostly on the outside for Carolina. Some really good stuff from last year, 6 pass breakups. He was coming back from an Achilles tear from 2022. Jackson primarily lines up in off coverage. It's where it seems like he's most comfortable, and also just with Carolina's scheme, they play a lot of off coverage, a lot of off zone, and even some off man stuff as well. So good rep right here, lined up across DJ Moore. You see the really smooth pedal that Jackson has. He has really light feet, so it allows him to stay square. You see how he's barely picking those feet up off the ground. Really good posture. Once more, declares that he's going vertical, kind of starts breaking that cushion at about that 3-yard mark. Jackson's able to easily flip, get hands on the receiver and squeeze him to the sideline. So a lot of questions I feel like that I wanted answered in the film room was, can Jackson still run? He ran a 4.32 coming out of college in LSU. Again, former second-round pick. But he's a guy who still has pretty good speed, even after some of the injuries that he's had. Like I said, the Achilles tear late in 2022. Really nice job right here. Again, just squeezing him to the sideline, staying on top of that go ball for a nice forced incompletion. Another rep right here. This time it's against Darnell Mooney. Like I said, we're going to start off with the off-coverage stuff, but I wanted to show you guys kind of the speed, because that's another thing that we talked about. I feel like that's kind of been the name of his game, really, over the course of his career. As everybody knows, he's kind of a faster guy. That was kind of his calling card coming out of college as well. So off-coverage right here, Mooney's going to give him a little, stutter go to the outside. Again, you see him flip his hips, able to stay on top vertically. I like getting contact right here too, because Mooney starts looking back for the ball right here, and that's when Jackson starts turning. And really, this is just to protect, just in case you get a back shoulder fade. But again, he stays on top, starts to kind of wall him off, looking lean. Unfortunately, doesn't come away with the interception. Ended up dropping one. He dropped a couple picks in the games I watched. He had some good chances. Here was another good chance for an interception here in a couple plays. But again, just kind of showing off, off coverage ability right here. He's playing outside leverage right here against, I think this is Chris Godwin at the bottom of the screen. You'll see the footwork, him kind of weaving to the inside once Godwin starts stemming this inside. Does a really nice job maintaining his leverage. And then once Godwin starts breaking out, you can see good anticipation here from Jackson. He's actually going to beat Godwin to the spot right here. He starts breaking down. You see the change of direction ability. Jackson still has some twitch to his game, even though he's 29 years old. He can still really move, especially that short area burst, acceleration, good stuff right there, playing the catch point. This ball was a little bit underthrown. And again, I thought he had some chances in the couple games that I watched to come away with some interceptions. Not necessarily anything, too concerning or anything like that. But I'm a little bit curious on his hands because there were some chances I felt like he let through his hands in the games that I watched. Like I said, another off coverage rep right here. Nice job playing the double move. So a lot of times you'll see Jackson line up about 6, 7, 8 yards off the ball. And really, he's just going to take like a 3-step read step. And really what he's doing is he's just keying the quarterback, looking for that 3-step drop. Geno Smith right here gives him a little shoulder fake. His hand separates from the ball, trying to sell this pump fake. And then they're just going to try to get him on a double move. Nice job by Jackson, staying balanced and working back end of phase right here. I believe that's Tyler Lockett up at the top of the screen. And then from here, the ball's inside. But again, just kind of off his hands again. Maybe looking for a pass interference right here. We'll see. Maybe Lockett got away with a little bit of a push. I don't know. Felt like he could have won that one, though. But overall, really good coverage. Next play here, off coverage again at the top of the screen. You see pedal, pedal, pedal. Wanted to show you guys some clips just of his kind of footwork and click and close ability, because that's really important if you're going to play a lot of off coverage. You know, Jackson here again, this is one of those, like I said, those 3-step read steps. You see him get those 3 steps. Once that quarterback, you know, his shoulder starts dipping, hand separates. Really nice close here. See, efficient mover, come down, make the tackle. You know, you're going to give up some of these cheap 3-4 yard throws if you're playing 8 yards off the ball. It's just the reality of it. The big thing is making sure you get that tackle, don't allow a bunch of yards after catch. There's a lot of clips on this video from this Bears game, really just because it was the best game of his that I watched. So there was a lot of good stuff. I felt like he played extremely well. Another good example, kind of that burst and click and close ability right here. They're going to get a short kind of throw to the flat right here because they end up with an unblocked rusher. So the quarterback has to get the ball out quick. But really nice recognition here from Jackson. I believe this is zone coverage. He's got his eyes in the backfield, but you'll see how efficient he is, just putting that foot in the ground and exploding out of his break, coming through, making a tackle. That's a good stop right there. Force him into a 3rd and long situation. Get into some other stuff. Just try to show you guys some change of direction stuff too. Right here, he does open up. Looks like he's playing some bell technique with his back to the sideline. But this is a really good fluid break right here, even though he's facing, you know, towards the logo. I believe that's Chris Olave is going to be running kind of what I would classify as a blaze out. But Jackson does a good job, you know, sinking his hips. You know, this is a tough break to make. Definitely shows off the hip fluidity to be able to break like that at that type of angle. And then you'll see him actually almost beat Olave to the throw. I mean, this is a really inaccurate throw from Carr. I'm not sure if this gets tipped at the line of scrimmage or if this is just a really bad ball. But I feel like the way he's, like the angle that he's taking right here, if this ball is accurate, you know, it's going to need to be an absolutely perfect kind of dot to the sideline away from the receiver's frame in order to complete this one. One thing I like about Jackson's game is out of breaks, I feel like he does a pretty good job of closing separation relatively quickly, especially, you know, on the underneath or intermediate area throws. Off coverage rep right here. Another good look at Jackson's pedal. I also think this is a really smart job. The ball goes elsewhere, but this is against Jalen Waddle, so you'll see him in his back pedal right here. He's a really smooth mover in terms of back pedal wise. A lot of corners, you know, coming out these days really don't have this ability to play from a pedal. But Jackson, this is probably where his best tape kind of comes from. Now, he does open up a little bit early right here. You can see him opening up with like 5 yards of cushion. Normally, you want that at about 2 to 3 yards. But I also think, you know, it's worth talking about that it's Jalen Waddle. This is a guy who's like a legit 4-3 guy. So if you want to open up a little bit early to respect that speed and not try to give up the play over the top, I think that's a good job. But again, I like how his eyes are down, you know, keying like his hip or thigh area. That way it helps him anticipate the break. And really good kind of click and close right here. Close that separation on the comeback. Nice job right there. Tyreek, of course, doing what he does. Nice zone coverage rep right here. Jackson is a gambler a little bit in the secondary for good and bad reasons. But I do appreciate, you know, some of the gambles that he takes, you know, have the potential to turn into good plays right here. So here he is working almost as like a cloud corner type. Does a good job, you know, rerouting and getting hands on the number 1 receiver at the bottom of the screen, squeezing him to the sideline, disrupting the timing right there. And then once he does this, you know, he almost like pinwheels to the back inside and then gets his eyes back on the quarterback and to the number 2 receiver to break out this, you know, stick route. And I'll show you guys this from the end zone angle, I think. But he actually probably would have had another interception opportunity right here if this linebacker didn't tip it beforehand, because he was in excellent position. It almost looks like, you know, he's going to have a good chance to pick this ball off. I think it ends up going off his helmet, off the deflection. But a really nice play right there. You know, he's played a lot of ball. I mean, this is, you know, he's drafted in 2018. He's a guy who's been around the block. So, you know, he's seen a lot of these route concepts. So good film study, good anticipation right there. Now we're going to kind of move into, you know, kind of the press rep section. You know, Jackson wasn't asked to do a ton of press last year in the 5-6 games that I watched. And really, there were some encouraging press reps as well. You know, the Steelers, they allowed Joey Porter Jr. to do a lot of pressing last year, so I'm curious if that's the plan with Jackson. But I really like the mirror ability right here. You see he's playing like a motor inch technique. He's going to give a little bit of ground at the line of scrimmage, but I like the fact that he's staying square to the receiver and staying balanced. This receiver's going to do a little like triple move almost, but really nice job matching and mirroring the movement of the receiver. Once this receiver tries to go back inside, he's going to do what I call like a switchback technique, and really that's just landing that inside arm to kind of help you stay sticky. Really nice coverage rep right there. And then comes up and makes a tackle on third down to, you know, get the defense off the field. So really nice rep. Here's against Michael Thomas from the Saints at the bottom of the screen. One thing that I do like about Jackson, he's a guy with 29-inch arms, so he's in like the 5th percentile for weight and for length. And we'll talk a little bit about, you know, how that kind of is a little bit at his detriment later in the video. But in terms of, you know, one of the things I do like about him is when he is in press and guys just try to go right through him and kind of bully him. So we call this like when they enter your cylinder, he will get 2 hands on the receiver and try to be physical. I mean, he is a competitive guy, and I like this right here. You know, Thomas isn't even giving him any type of move or anything like that. He's just running straight into him and trying to bully him, almost like a bully release, try to create that separation. But a good job by Jackson holding his own right there and then forcing the off-target throw. Bottom of the screen right here, here's another example of what I was talking about, kind of playing heads up on DK Metcalf, another bigger receiver. He's going to try to get this 2-hand jam. You know, Metcalf, again, he's just trying to bully him. There's no, you know, jab step, no A step, B step release. He's just trying to run right through him. And you can see Jackson's 180 pounds, so, like, he's going to give up ground right here. But one thing I do want to point out, though, is I think it disrupts the timing of the route more than anything else. You just want to make sure that if you're in press, you don't want to give somebody just a free release. You know, especially if he's going to enter your cylinder like that, be physical with him. And then you can see Geno with his drop right here. It's really just a quick drop to the flat. But, you know, at that point, Jackson's done a good job, you know, covering for the first, you know, couple yards, making it difficult, making DK work for it. But, you know, at the top of the route, kind of see DK give him a little throw by move where he's putting his inside arm on Jackson's inside shoulder and kind of pushing off at the top of the route. We'll talk a little bit about that as the video kind of unfolds. But overall, like, when he is in press, he does a good job, you know, being physical. He will try to use his length, and he's competitive. And that's one thing I like about him. You definitely see some competitive streak in Jackson. That's definitely something I value for cornerbacks. I clipped up a couple red zone reps as well. Jackson right here playing outside leverage. I believe this is Chris Olave. Olave does a good job, you know, just playing to that leverage, trying to widen him to the outside before breaking inside to the back, like kind of towards the back end zone line. Really nice job here, just trying to close that space. He does allow a little separation originally off the break point because his eyes are in the backfield. But one thing that I really like here is he does a good job playing through the hands. And this is, you know, he does get an assist here from the safety who lays a decent hit. But from the end zone angle, you can really see this, you know, him playing through the hands and trying to rake that football out, which is definitely what you want to do at the catch point. And I really appreciate that aspect of it. Jackson is a guy, like I said, he's been around a good while now, so he understands, you know, some of the veteran tricks of the trade. Good look at it right here from the end zone angle. Again, he gets an assist from the safety, but you can see Jackson, his eyes are up, and he's trying to play through the hands for the incompletion in the red zone. Nice job right here. This is always a tricky one when you get down here in the red zone and everything's condensed. You're liable to get a bunch of these, you know, pick routes and things like that. And that's basically what this is. You kind of get this deep under or slant route, and you get the outbreaker. Really what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a pick on this outside receiver, trying to make these guys run into each other. But Jackson does a good job, you know, working underneath this pick and getting himself back into position to make a play on the football. Again, playing through the hands, gets a nice PBU. I like that stuff right here. You can see this throw is a little bit behind, you know, from where this quarterback probably wants to put it. He probably needs to put it out in front of him. But Jackson does a good job at least making this a contested catch situation. Does a good job ripping that ball out. Nice job. You know, something I talk about too, and you guys probably heard me talk a lot about it last year on the channel, just run defense and how important it is as a corner. The biggest thing for run defense for me personally is just you got to have the dog, the want to. And I think Jackson has the want to in run defense. You know, I think if I asked around about him a little bit just in terms of getting people's opinions that do like Panthers film and stuff like that. And one of the things that I was told was that, he wasn't as, I guess, fearless in the run game since he had some injuries just over the last couple years. But really, that didn't show up for me. In the games that I watched, I felt like he was more than willing to come down and tackle in the run game. He'll stick his face in the fan, all that stuff. So there was encouraging moments. Now I wouldn't classify him as a very good run defender, but he is a willing run defender, which I think is almost more than you could say about, some of the corners that the Steelers were throwing out there last year where, especially the first half of the season, they were just absolutely atrocious. So a lot of these last 2 reps kind of that I clipped here are just examples of the running back, bouncing stuff to the outside on, duo or gap schemes. Really, this just puts the cornerback in one-on-one situations with the back. He made the tackle last rep, does a good job, taking a good angle. You always want to attack that outside shoulder, outside hip to make sure, if you do miss the tackle, you at least flow the running back into your help to the middle of the field. So really nice job right there. You could definitely tell, too, like just in his mannerisms and stuff like that, Jackson has a lot of confidence in himself, and that's, cornerback's one of those positions, man. You got to have confidence in yourself. Another nice rep right here. Just maintain and contain. Whenever he was the contain or force defender on the outside against the run, I didn't clip up a ton aside from the Chicago game, but he did a good job, funneling stuff back into his help. Again, really nice angle right there, taking the outside hip, making a nice one-on-one tackle. So now we're going to kind of get into some of the things that I felt like were recurring themes over the 6 games that I watched in terms of things that he struggled with. So just bear with me. But I want to give you guys not just the highlights, but I want to give you guys a complete depiction or, idea of what he is as a player. So a lot of off coverage reps. So you'll see right here, he's, again, reading the quarterback, good pedal. And then he's going to get an out and up. I believe this is Shaheed or whoever from the Saints. But Derek Carr gives him a little pump fake, and you can see he does not get the eyes back on the receiver. He's trying to kind of cheat, gamble, try to break on this out route, and then he gets beat for an out and up. So sometimes his eyes, instead of right here, getting to the back of his pedal, once this quarterback, stops, instead of getting his eyes back on the receiver to close that space and get back in phase, you can see he's still got his eyes in the backfield, and that's how you get susceptible. You get burned by double moves like that. His eyes in the backfield, I mentioned a little bit earlier, he is a gambler. There will be times I felt like, too, the more that I watched, the more that I felt like teams were, maybe taking advantage of that a little bit. I saw him have to defend quite a few double moves, and I don't think that was necessarily by accident. Normally, if you see teams run multiple double moves at a corner, it usually means that's something that's on the scouting report. So right here, you get empty. Normally, an empty, the ball comes out quick, right? So he's expecting some type of stick route from the number 2 receiver. And, he kind of ends up cheating a little bit. Geno gives him a little hesitation. And then the running back, who's just, kind of gracefully grazing up the sideline, hits the big play right behind him. Now, as far as coverage-wise, it's a little bit difficult for me to tell what this coverage is, but I'm like 90-something% sure he's supposed to at least carry number 1 vertically just because of the alignment of the safety. But you can kind of see him realize right here that he's out of position. So when Jackson got beat, one of the things about him is like it just typically ended up being a big play. And there were multiple reasons why that was. One of the things about Jackson, too, is, like I mentioned, he's 178 pounds and he's only got 29-inch arms. So play strength is an issue. That's part of the reason I feel like that maybe they didn't ask him to play a ton in press. Was just because, play strength was consistently a thing that kind of kept showing up on tape. Right here, I felt like this was, they tried a couple double moves or a couple like schemed plays in his direction. You can kind of see what that does to him. It kind of causes him this little false step right here. Instead of clicking, closing, and driving, it's almost like he's anticipating a double move, and he doesn't even get it right here. And he almost pops back 2 full false steps, which makes it more difficult. He's already given up, at this point, he's already given up an easy first down from off coverage. That's fine. Just come up and make the tackle. But you can see, like, he will fall off tackles. I mean, you just look at, like, Pro Football Focus. His missed tackle rate over the course of his career is 17%. Ideally, for defensive backs, you want that, like, around 10 or at least in single digits. But his is just really high for a corner. Another example right here, you just got to get a quick, stick concept with this receiver working to the flat. Jackson does a good job. He's just playing off coverage. He doesn't panic out of his back pedal. Click, and then he starts closing, but then just misses the tackle. So stuff like this is kind of frustrating because if you're going to play this much off coverage, you have to make sure that you tackle the throw underneath, because as long as he makes his tackle, that's an unsuccessful play, right? That's a 2-yard gain on 1st and 10. We're cool with that. But instead, a 2-yard gain turns into 12 or 13 and an easy first down. In the play strength thing, it shows up in a number of different ways. One of the things that I felt like people were able to do with him over the games that I watched was really separate a little bit at the break point, because he just kind of lacks the strength to hold up. Now DK is running this deep dig route. Now we can argue all day long if this is pass interference or not, but we see this every Sunday. You see him create a little separation, and it gets Jackson off balance. Now he does a good job, getting himself back into phase right here, but then he takes a terrible angle. He tries to undercut this ball, and this is what I'm saying. Like, there were just a lot of big plays allowed on tape, especially like against the bigger or better receivers that he faced. And then even too, like, it's not really his fault. It's just the way that he's built. There are some plays that he just can't make because of his frame. So right here, he's outside leverage against Michael Thomas. He plays this perfectly. He kind of shuffles outside to maintain that leverage. He, is on top of the receiver right here. He starts to look back for the football, and, for the back shoulder, this ball is already in the air. He's in perfect position. It's just Thomas is bigger, stronger, and you see Jackson just kind of lose his balance up at the catch point. This ball ends up, I think this throw originally ends up incomplete, but then they reviewed it, ended up calling it a completion. And then just another kind of example right here, Jackson does try, when guys try to bully him off the line of scrimmage, he will try to get hands on, but a lot of the time when the receiver is able to kind of get him on his heels, he can't really recover once he's in this stage right here when the receiver is able to get him on his back, because he doesn't have that, requisite length to kind of reach around and use that inside arm to break up passes. We saw Joey Porter Jr. break up a lot of these, even when he was beat off the line, in press coverage on these like slants and stuff. He has that recovery length. Jackson, unfortunately, just because of his build, he doesn't really have that. And then just in general, looking at a couple more press reps, his technique in press is extremely inconsistent, and definitely more inconsistent than I originally anticipated that it would be, for a guy who's, 29, been around quite a while. He's at the bottom of the screen right here against this Seahawks wide receiver. I think this is Bobo. He's probably like their 3rd, 4th, 5th guy, something like that. But you can see, this receiver is really just kind of lollygagging, trying to lull him to sleep off the line of scrimmage. And Jackson's already turning his shoulders and opening up the gate, which just makes this transition a lot more difficult than it needs to be. You see he's he's not staying square as he's giving ground. And because he's giving too much ground, once this guy kind of gives him that A-step, jab step back inside, Jackson, again, you see the short arms come up too. Like, he doesn't have the ability to just like switch back like that once he's out of position, opening up his hips, kind of locking his hips out. It's just a tough one right there. Ball ends up going elsewhere. And then really just, the last play that I clipped up too, like I said, the big plays were just evident on tape, man. And this is a frustrating one for me against Tyreek. He ends up getting beat on the streak route to the outside. Now, I'm not really sure exactly what the Panthers are doing here from a coverage perspective. Is this cover 6 and, this safety down at the bottom of the screens trying to poach number 3 from the other side? Is he supposed to be giving Donte help? Really unclear to me. What I do not like, though, is if you're going to play in press, especially against a guy like Tyreek, who is, world-class speed. He's a really fast dude, right? You have to take away something. You either got to take away the inside or take away the outside. You see Jackson, he's playing this motor technique, motoring backwards. But again, watch his feet. Instead of taking those like 6-inch steps backwards and remaining square, he ends up, kind of getting off balance a little bit from the jump. And like Tyreek doesn't even really give him a move. He just kind of speed releases to the outside. And if you're going to turn this into a track meet, Donte still has good speed, not quantifiably elite speed in my opinion. He still has pretty good speed for his age. But these type of track meets are things that you want to avoid. You at least want to try to make this receiver work around you and try to use the sideline to your advantage. But when you open your hips up early like this, it's going to make that hip flip a little bit more difficult. Doesn't get hands on the receiver. This is just too easy for a guy like Tyreek. I mean, he's out of the screen at this point, and beats him by a couple yards. So some of the stuff like that, I think, were kind of frustrating. I expected a little bit more in terms of, like, from a technical perspective. All in all, the trade itself, like with him reducing his salary cap hit, I think it's more easy to stomach the Donte Jackson trade. Now, I do want to just be completely honest. In terms of, like, player for player, Deontay's a better player than Donte Jackson is, in my opinion. I don't really know that it's all that close. But at the same time, I do like the speed element. They got faster in the back end. When you talk about replacing Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson with Donte Jackson, I like that because I talked a lot about trying to get faster in the back seven. So Jackson does accomplish that. Even though I do think he's lost a step from where he was when he came into the league, he still has good speed. He can run with the majority wide receivers down the field and stay in phase. I think he's pretty good in off coverage. There's some calculated gambles that I think sometimes they'll pay off, probably for turnovers, and then he's a little bit susceptible to big plays as well. I'm very interested to see if the Steelers end up asking him to press more, because to me, when I did see him do it, I thought the results were really shaky. So I'm not sure I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I don't know the plan for him. Now, I do anticipate that he's probably going to be the week 1 starter on the outside. I anticipate that they're going to continue to add to the cornerback room. But he's a baseline CB2, ideally probably high-end CB3 for me. But he doesn't have slot versatility. He's never really played there in the pros, so that's interesting as well. But he's competitive, got good change of direction. Like I say, he's got good speed, light feet, but he's just susceptible to some big plays. And from a technical perspective, I think he leaves a little bit to be desired as well. But maybe in a better environment. Steelers, were, I think, 12th in pressure rate last season. The Panthers were 31st. And, the Steelers played about 10% more man coverage. Maybe this is a better fit for him. But at the very worst, I think they got a top 3 type of cornerback on a reasonable deal, 1 year, $6 million, at least for another year. And then they can kind of use this as a stopgap as the worst case scenario, I would say. But Tomlin's loved him. He said that he's liked him since, he was coming out. So I'm excited to see what he can do in this defense and kind of how all the pieces start to fit in the puzzle. So if you guys do me a favor, if y'all made it to the end of the video, please make sure that you like, subscribe, drop me a comment, turn on notifications, all that stuff. And I will check you guys next time. Peace and love.